This afternoon, we get to the privilege of hearing from Chris Blinzinger on your right, Provo City Emergency Manager. Also, Nikki Swan, the Director of Internship Services from Utah Valley University. And James McCoy, the Internship Coordinator, also from Utah Valley University. And I could direct you to your programs where you may read their biographies. I'm not going to take time away from their presentation to do that, but please look through your program at their biographies. There will be some time at the end for questions, or would you like to take that throughout? Or save that? All right, questions are welcome at any time. And we'll just turn the time over to them, and who's going to be speaking? James is going to take off first. All right, so let's give them a big hand and welcome them here.
Well, as he said, I'm Jim McCoy. I'm kind of new to the higher education area, but I've got a pretty extensive background just in management and dealing with individuals and hiring and the maintenance of employees and dealing with consumers on a day-to-day basis. So when I came to the university, I've had a unique experience to be able to deal with a lot of the emergency managers and fire departments, police departments, and it's been an enlightening experience. Great bunch of people. So I appreciate being able to have that experience. So one of the questions I get asked most frequently, especially by emergency managers, is why should I hire? All right, so the question I get most from emergency managers in particular is why implement an internship program? And I found this to be kind of an interesting question given the fact that I've never met an emergency manager that doesn't have 5 million projects on the back burner waiting to be accomplished. So with that in mind, this opportunity allows you as emergency managers the opportunity to do long-term interviews with students, to increase your productivity by having a helping hand come in and help with projects you haven't been able to get started or haven't had the man hours to work on. You can get a little bit of an enhanced perspective just on the fact that as individuals, we're all unique, we have unique perspectives, so you get some of these young people in with different backgrounds from what you have out in the field, and sometimes you can get an interesting perspective on how things might work in a different way that helps you get the project through faster or makes it make sense to other people. And the other aspect I really like to talk about is the fact that not only is it low-cost labor, paid or unpaid internships, either one is fine within the internship atmosphere. You don't have to pay to have a good intern come and help you out within your facility. But it's increased visibility. These students, they travel by word of mouth, they're constantly on Twitter and texting each other, Snapchat. So you get these young interns in your office and they're working with you, they're building those network opportunities. They're seeing what it takes to be out in the field and be an emergency manager. And so they're communicating with each other faster than I ever dreamed of it. I still kind of miss my phone attached to the wall in the house. So there's that increased visibility that you may not have otherwise. So as far as an internship, what it looks like, what the kind of the general requirements are based on the university standard, is that the internship has to be a meaningful experience for the student. While it is low-cost labor, it's not just an opportunity to have a laborer come in and file papers or anything like that. These students need to gain real-world experience, come in and experience what it's like to be in the position, so that not only when they graduate, they're out there doing a great job like all of you have been doing, but they know what they're doing when they get there. They don't come in not understanding what's expected and not being able to fill the shoes of their predecessor. It builds on the student's education based on that same principle. It's career focused. Our hope is that these opportunities with internships gives the student the experience necessary so that when they're done, it leads to employment. We encourage them to do multiple internships so they can get a variety of experiences within the field, different areas, different cities. We all do things a little different depending on the municipal we're associated with. And one of the other requirements that is a big one is supervised by a mentor. Now, it doesn't have to be somebody that's got a degree, bachelor's, master's, whatever the case, within the field that you're in. What a mentor means in this case is somebody that has the experience within the field that they can be considered a professional within the industry. And so they're mentoring the student on a weekly, daily basis, whatever's needed to make sure the student's accomplishing what they need done and what the student's doing it correctly. As I've already said, it could be paid or unpaid. Internships can go as short as a semester. We have several that go as long as a year or more. Now, the benefits to the students, I've already talked about some of these, is the real-world knowledge. They can't get that in the classroom. You can study books all you want, but you're not going to get the experience needed if you're not out in the field seeing what really happens. Years ago, I was an iron worker, and I had engineers come down with their graphs and stuff all the time to me and tell me how my steel shop could run better and produce more faster. It's a little different looking from the ivory tower than it is out there in the trenches doing it. Things don't always work like they say they should. It enhances their resume. It gives them something to put on their resume to show they've got experience, they've done something. They've got connections they're building, resources. And this long-term interview process helps them build the opportunity to show you what they're made of, and so that you may decide, this person, I know them, I know their work ethic, I know their personality, I know they'll come in and do a good job. So it's easy to hire somebody when you already know them. And then there's all kinds of statistics out there that tell students, they look them up, they tell me about them. I also look them up, that these experiences allow them increased earning potential. And through these experiences, they can get that increased earning potential, which then feeds back into our communities. They make more money, they spend more money. We do that. I do that personally. Now, the requirements for hours for a student for internship, 65 working hours equals 1 credit of internship. You as the manager, you're not responsible for the student's internship hours. That is the student's responsibility to manage that they're getting the hours needed for the number of credits they've signed up for within their internship. If not, they need to communicate it with me. Now, with that being said, we wanted to make sure this was clear and in plain sight so that when you as emergency managers, you're bringing in a student or you're starting an internship program and you want to know, well, gosh, how many hours do I need to give this student? How much time do I need to dedicate? This gives you an idea. Our emergency management field, it's a 3 credit hour internship. And so, I mean, it's pretty simple mathematics there. So students can get up to 12 credits. So if they really like their internship with you, they can apply again to complete the internship for a longer period of time and stay with you longer, and they can still get credit for it. So it gives them that unique perspective and incentive to fulfill those requirements.
So I want to get an idea of who we're talking to here. How many of you, just raise your hands, how many of you are with a public organization, so a governmental organization? So the majority of you. Is anyone in here with a private organization? Okay, you're a lone wolf here, did you know that? So great. And this is really exciting for us to be able to be here and present this to your organization. What you guys do is really important. So first of all, thank you for what you do for our communities and for our workplaces and helping us to stay safe. We appreciate it. We have, sorry to tell you, even though you guys have cool jobs and we admire you, we have the best jobs that are out there. And you can't have our jobs, sorry. But we do things that make people happy all day long. So we make the connection between the people and the employers. We get to help students forward their vision, and we get to help you guys be more efficient and meet your goals as well. And that's a really happy place to be. So if I leave, I'll let you guys know, and you can apply for my jobs. But we love what we do, and we really do believe in it, and we'd love to help you guys to be able to achieve that as well. So you've heard all the reasons why you should be doing this. I want to talk about some of the nuts and bolts. What does it look like, and how do you get to the internship? I'm also curious, how many of you have had an intern in your organizations before? Okay, so a few of you. And has that been a good experience for you guys? Yeah? Okay, how many of you have actually participated in an internship yourself while you were in college? Okay, I wish that had been something that was pushed a little more, at least in my undergraduate experience. It wasn't something that I knew a lot about, and I would have benefited so much from having that experience. So I'm glad some of you have been able to participate in that. It is more and more common, and more, depending on the industry, something that is expected of the students before they get into the positions that they're looking for. And ask yourself, if you were a hiring manager and you were reviewing resumes, would you choose someone who had that practical hands-on experience somewhere, or you know perhaps the people that they were working with, you know that's a very reputable organization, so you know the training that they would get. Would you prefer that person with that internship experience over the person that didn't? So it helps the industry, and it helps you as well. So here's the nuts and bolts. What we want you guys to do first, as you're considering this program, especially if you've never had an intern before, is to think, what are our needs right here in this organization? What types of things do we have that are goals that are been on the back burner all the time because, as Jim said, you are busy people with a lot going on, a lot of responsibilities on you. So what are those things? You're probably thinking of some right now. Is there some research that somebody can come in and do? Do you have a bunch of data that needs to be analyzed and maybe some recommendations made because of that? Assess those types of needs, and then what do you have internally to meet that, and what would you benefit from? And then make sure what you're assessing is a learning type of experience. Remember that the internship is for the benefit primarily of the student. And we'll talk a little bit about that later on, but we sure hope that it benefits you as well. So I want both things to be considered. And then based on that, you want to plan and design. What does that look like now? So let's say that you identified you want somebody to analyze a bunch of data that you've got that's out there and nobody can get to it. Okay, so who would that student work with in order to do that? Who could be their mentor? How would they be successful in that situation and still be able to produce really good work for you? What would their workplace look like? How many hours would you need them to be? Jim just showed you that for UVU, 65 hours of work is 1 academic credit for this particular program. And it varies from college to college. In Utah, it's usually somewhere around there, 50 to 60 to somewhere between 50 to 75 hours equals 1 academic credit. Most students are looking for about 3 credits. So as you think through your program, that's kind of the target you're looking for, is about that 20-hour a week is a sweet spot for the students. You may decide you want somebody full-time, and a student, if they see the opportunity is really of value, they will come in and they'll reduce or even take a break from what they're taking in school in order to get that opportunity. That's what we educate them towards, because of the advantage that they get from being able to work with professionals like you. So you'll plan and design according to what your unique needs are. From our perspective, what we care about is that they have an appropriate workplace. We do not, very, very, very rarely will we approve a remote internship. So somebody working at home while you're all in the office is not an ideal situation for an intern. We don't approve 1099 type employees. So just as you're structuring it, you can think through those types of things. But we would like them to be somewhere in proximity of the person who's mentoring them, a place where they can get a lot of feedback, a place where they can participate and see what's going on. If you put yourself in the shoes of a student and think, what would I want to learn? What would I want to experience? How would I be successful? And then design that. And we're available to you to answer questions, check things out before you start. If that's what you'd like us to do, we'd be happy to. Then you'll recruit. And my next slide is all about recruiting. So hold your thoughts on that, and I'll get to that. We do want you to complete an internship agreement with us. So your organization will need to enter into that. Some of you may already have, just because another division of your organization has had a UVU intern. and those are good for 5 years. So we can answer that question of whether you currently have one on file or not. I brought some examples. So if you're really interested in setting an internship up and you'd really like to work with UVU, we have an outstanding program, then you may want to take this to your legal and just say this is what we would need to sign, and we can help you to initiate that agreement. And that's typical across all universities, and I'll talk a little more about the legal side in a future slide as well. Okay, so then you want to hire, and you will hire just like you would hire any other position. You don't need to go through any special processes. However, as a convenience to you, if you wanted to, through UVU, we could set up interviews for you. We could even screen applicants for you. We could help you to do a lot of that work. We could collect the resumes and then make recommendations. It's whatever is easiest for you. We want to be able to help you with that. So you let us know. If you'd rather students apply straight to you, you all handle it, you make the hire on your own, then that's great too. Jim touched on this. It can be a paid or unpaid situation. I will say that you're going to get better talent if you have a paid situation. So if that's within your budget, then I would advise you to do that. If it's not within your budget, and that's typical for government agencies, the students get that, and you want to incentivize them in other ways. And we'll talk about that a little bit too. Okay, so then you want to manage the experience. So as I said, there needs to be a mentor. Of course, that mentor needs to know how to do what the student's being asked to do. That mentor, one of the first responsibilities of the mentor is to sit down with the intern. This will be an assignment that'll come as part of the class the intern's taking. And sit down and identify learning objectives. So again, the internship needs to support the learning of the intern. So you'll sit down and agree, these are the outcomes that we'll have from this learning experience. Now here's all the work that will help you to have that learning. That's the main part. So the beginning, and then all of the management that goes on there, making sure that the student has all the skills that they need, teaching them, giving them feedback. Something that might interest you, and maybe those of you that have been interns, you can agree with this. Our interns come back and sometimes they complain that they haven't been given direct enough feedback. So don't try and spare their feelings necessarily and hold back some things that you think really would benefit them. I'm not saying to be mean to them, but I am encouraging you when you have these responsibilities to share very honest and direct feedback and help them to get better, and then recognize when they do, these students want that. They're hungry to learn. They really want to make their mark, and they want to impress you. All right, and then at the end of it, you will do an evaluation of the intern. So that's the final responsibility of the way that we have structured our program. That evaluation doesn't go to the intern, although we can share it with them if you want to. We're happy to keep it confidential if that's what you want. But that evaluation helps us to grade the intern. It also helps us to know how well are we preparing our students for what you, the practitioners, value and need. And what can we do better to make sure that they're being professional? I'm sure you can think of some people that you wish had some kind of orientation that talked about professionalism before they joined you. We try really hard to prep our interns to come in ready to go, understanding workplace rules and unspoken rules and things like that. Any questions on this process? Or any experiences anybody wants to share about what's worked for them and how they've set up their programs? Okay. All right, how to recruit. This is the one that everybody gets stuck on. It is hard to get in front of the students and get that information out to them. So here's some options that are up here, and there's other ways to do it as well. Handshake is a job board that we have at UVU. It's something that other Utah schools are moving to if they're not already there. I know Weber was going towards it, Utah State. And what's nice for you is that if you're recruiting from multiple schools, you can post one job posting and then indicate all the schools you want that to go out to. So this isn't just for internships, this would be for part-time jobs, full-time jobs, anything that you're recruiting for. And it's a great program, very user-friendly. Jim and I can both help anybody that wanted assistance with that to get set up. This is something that students are encouraged to get onto and to look at. Our emergency management students, because they're very specialized, they may not be on here as much as, say, a communications student or a business student. So you might want to try some other avenues as well. So Jim is really your greatest weapon. He is in front of these students all the time. He knows who's looking for internships. He can coordinate with the professors that are working directly with the students and the skill sets that you're looking for. So you want to make sure that you make a connection with him. Jim has some cards right up here at front, so please feel free to grab them. I also have a card up front too for Handshake that gives just some basic information about how to get there, if you're curious about that as well. Career counselors, every school at UVU has a career counselor dedicated to them. They're people that can help you to get the word out. Also, recruiting events that are going on. We do have job fairs. Again, for your specific area, you may not get quite as many students in that major walking through, but it is a good way to build presence. So just to have a reputation of, oh, I'd love to work for this organization. I've seen them on campus a lot. Other students have been there. They like them. That can help. Also, some specialized career fairs might be something that we could work together if that is, if there's a broad interest in that. So something that's just emergency management, and we bring just those students in, and you can recruit for internships and jobs that way as well. It's not something we offer right now, but something that we could if there's interest. Okay, student networks, professional organizations. If you have student clubs that are emergency management club, that's a great way to recruit for these students, and Jim can help with that as well. And then how you structure your internship will be a great way for you to actually recruit students. So how you structure your advertisements. The students are just like us, and they want to know what's in it for me. And if you lead with that, you're going to be exposed to X, Y, and Z. You're going to learn X, Y, and Z. We'll compensate you. You'll get a bus pass. Whatever it is that you're doing, focus on that learning again. But that is what the students pay attention to. They want to know, what am I getting out of this? Is it worth my time? A profile of a UVU student, the vast majority of our students, 75% work. And so they're balancing a lot. They're in school and they're working. A lot of them have families. A lot of them are non-traditional students. We've got a great student body, and that mix, I hate to keep bragging about UVU, but I'm going to keep doing it because it's awesome. That mix produces students that the industry recognizes as very hard workers, people that come in, they're hungry to prove themselves, they want to work hard, and they want to do a good job. But it can be hard for them to step away from these things to take on an internship. So you want to incentivize them properly. And then the quality of the assignments. What cool things are they going to do? How are they building their resumes? How are they moving forward? Okay. Let's talk about the fun part. This is where if you aren't already asleep, you're going to sleep. Don't do that to me. Okay, it is important that we think about the legal side of all of this, and that's what a lot of my job entails, unfortunately. So first off is liability. We do, as a university, carry general liability insurance for all of our interns. So if you hire a UVU intern, you'll know that they are covered with that. That isn't health insurance, so if they chop off an arm, that's not going to help them. But if they burn down your building, well, we have that insurance. These things don't happen. Don't look scared. Okay, internship agreement we talked about. I'd love for you to take a look at that. What the internship agreement does is it covers all of us with liability. It spells out exactly what responsibilities we have and you have and the student has. The university's responsibility is the academic side. So make sure that they are getting quality instruction from a faculty mentor who is dealing with the class that partners with your internship experience. And you may or may not coordinate with that faculty mentor if they reach out to you. We are responsible for making sure they get grades and that's a quality experience on that side. We prepare our interns and bring them to you, understanding the important things that they need to do about how to just be professional. And we prepare them through their classes to get to where you need them to be in terms of the skill set. That's our responsibility. Yours is to make sure they have a quality work environment, that they're taken care of, that you are teaching them and giving them access to learning and to all the tools that they need. If the internship is an unpaid internship, there are some extra considerations that you need to think of, especially under FLSA and workers' compensation. So unpaid, the student needs to be covered with workers' compensation one way or another. If it's unpaid, the university, as an extension of our programs, we cover them. If it is paid, then they are like an employee and non-exempt employee for you. And so they have access to that as well, okay? FLSA, on Friday, they just changed the rules. It used to be for an unpaid intern, For a for-profit organization, which only benefits this gentleman over here right now, but the guidelines are still something that all of you should be considering. It used to be very, very strict. In order for it to be an unpaid intern and not be considered slave labor, one of the rules was that the organization would derive zero immediate benefit from having the intern. How could that possibly be? That would be a horrible intern if you didn't benefit at all from them. So it was too strict, and so Friday, the Department of Labor just changed it, and that was exciting. I've got a copy of their fact sheet that they put out for what it is, and now the test is who is the primary beneficiary? Who derives the most value out of this experience? We want our students to make a difference in your organization, whether it's paid or unpaid, and this test now allows for that. It's more flexible. There's 7 points to the test, and it's all very, I think it's much more user-friendly, and that's available right there. And I'm always available to talk to anyone that had additional questions or wanted some coaching as you go into this. So those are the legal considerations to think through. And we're going to turn this over to Chris, who's going to talk more from a practitioner's point of view of what this looks like and why this is a great idea.
All right. I was very interested in doing a presentation about this because I have had a number of individuals call me who said, I've called 10 different places, 10 different jurisdictions, fire departments, cities, and no one will provide an internship. Well, that's nice to know that I'm number 11 on the list. What does that say about me? But that means that there's folks out there, there's hungry students that want an internship, and there's not enough opportunities to provide them. So when there was asked a show of hands of who's had interns, there was a few. But my question is, what is preventing you from facilitating hosting an intern? I used to think, when I was still new as an emergency manager, how can I possibly get someone to do what I don't even know what I'm supposed to be doing? Emergency management has largely been second careers, or it was not, you were not trained in schooling as an emergency manager. It was a different career, or you evolved into that from some other field or some other function. Well, now we have emergency management programs, emergency management specific. But after talking to Dr. McIntyre down at UVU, he explains that it takes 7 years to get new curriculum. 7 years. And I had an intern in the last year who was very informed about Hurricane Katrina and the challenges with that and the problems, and this is what we've got to fix. But Hurricane Katrina was about a dozen disasters ago, and almost as many years ago. And if that's what they're learning in school, and they're learning the fundamentals and the theory behind emergency management, but we are an evolving career. And providing this opportunity, that's not a diss on academia. They're doing what they can, and they're in the process of updating their curriculums, but providing them the practical application. I call it experiential learning. So, how do we hand something off? How do we find a project for them to work on that they can have a direct impact on? And as Nikki mentioned, something that is mutually beneficial. Mutually beneficial does not mean it's 50-50. That means that it's benefiting both parties involved. And that may be more beneficial for the intern. I doubt that it's going to be more beneficial for the jurisdiction, but it is mutually beneficial. So there's a benefit that we can gain from hosting these interns. We know it's an evolving profession. We've got folks in the room who were recently in Florida and Puerto Rico. We'll see presentations on that, but there's lessons learned from those things. And those lessons learned lead to new policies or new regulations or new requirements. We are ever working on emergency operation plans, resource lists, community outreach programs, training and exercises. And how much of that can you give a part of a training program or a community presentation to an intern to help develop and deliver? Have you thought about that? Is that something that would help you? I think that we have, I won't say an obligation, but we have an opportunity. I work with an emergency manager right now for the Urban South region of Intermountain Healthcare. He was my intern. You know that he attended LEPCs and emergency management meetings with me. He helped me prepare exercises. And now that he's in that position, He's pretty well networked, at least in our county. And he knows those local emergency managers. He's familiar with some of the processes. While he's still drinking from a fire hose in that position, he's already networked in. And I think there's a valuable experience for me that now we have a relationship, and that individual has a relationship with other emergency managers in our community. I have another intern working for Oklahoma State Division of Emergency Management for the state. I have other interns who are working for in the Gold Cross function. But I think that folks who I have to tell you, I'm not an expert on having an intern. I don't have it all figured out, and each intern is different. Something that I make sure they understand in the beginning is what you get out of this internship is up to you. Give them the share give them the project, give them some options, and let me know what you need from me and provide them the tools that they need to accomplish that objective. I don't like working by the clock, and they talked about 65 hours, and there's a lot that goes on that's not directly related to me with that intern, with research they have to do or with things that they're doing on their own. Having a workspace. How many of you work behind a locked door that takes an access card? I do. That does provide, that is a challenge for some folks. Do they get the credential they need? Can they pass a background check? Do we trust someone who's not an employee or not a long-term solution giving them access? Well, that's something that really you have to put in place long before you go to post that internship. Things that you need to think about within your organization. Compensation is challenging. There's been times when I've been able to pay a small stipend, and other times when I was very upfront with the individuals, stating that there's no compensation. Your benefit is the networking or the knowledge and understanding you gain from this. Having a workspace, a computer, access to your organization's network, that can be tricky as well. Having an ID card. Do they get a volunteer or an internship card, or what access do they have? Training. There's some great training opportunities out there. Several years ago, I had an intern that needed to, I can't remember what the project was, but they had applied to complete some training, and they were not granted that because they were a student. But if we cannot give those students the training to help accomplish a project, we're failing. There's some things on a larger scale that need to be fixed. And I'm not here to say what all's wrong with our process or our programs, because I'll tell you, they've been incredibly helpful and beneficial. And frankly, I enjoy being able to work with folks and watching them learn and answer their questions and mentor them in their own development of what they're doing. And I'm not a professional, and I have my own deficiencies, and my function is an emergency manager. But I tell you, there's something I learned from those interns as well. And it becomes a partnership of whatever project we're working on. And that is very beneficial and very helpful. But to see that individual grow and learn in what they're working on, and to know that whether they work for me or not, or in a different state, they're taking that on with them, and that's going to benefit them in their career somewhere down the line. So what can you have them do? I mentioned resource lists, community outreach, plan revision. Well, can you have them revise a plan? No, but are plans revised by one person or committee? And is that something that you can include them in with the plan revision? Get them to sit in on those committee meetings and give them assignments based on that. Those are things that we can do. Now, is it just emergency management interns or emergency management students? Absolutely not. Public administration, public health. I've had nurses intern for me who were working on their bachelor's degree, helping me with community outreach programs. It's not just emergency management interns. And I would say of the number of interns that I've had, about half of them have been from UVU, but especially with emergency management programs. The large majority of those programs are online. And so we've got students in our state who are doing schooling through Arizona State, which I had an intern from. I've got an intern right now who's with Post University out on the East Coast. He's also in the National Guard. And that brings its own skill set in enhancing his understanding of emergency management. And what a great opportunity for me to understand. Military is tough because military thinks one way. And when you go from that to local government, there's a difference there, but it also has helped me understand how we work with the military. So there's a lot, as I mentioned. the curriculums, the things that they're learning. You can't take the ICS leadership course and write a paper about it and think that that is your leadership training, because leadership is a skill, but we also, they're learning from a fire hose with all of the acronyms and all of the things. Have you ever had to try to talk to a family member or an acquaintance about what you do and not use those acronyms or explain specifically what you do? Because I don't manage emergencies on a regular basis. How many of you emergency managers manage emergencies on a regular basis? That's not what we do. We're planners. We're meeting attenders. We're exercise designers. We're trainers. We're community outreachers. We do so much more than manage emergencies. I think we need to change the title. Emergency manager is kind of sexy, but there's a lot more that we do that are not directly related to managing an emergency. It's part of the larger program. Where can we give that intern an opportunity to move in there and assist us and learn and come out with a final product? The steep learning curve, well, that's because of all the acronyms and the dynamics. UFA, you guys, you have a great presence of emergency management within the county, and that's awesome. Provo Emergency Manager is buried about several levels down, and how that works within the local government, it's a little different. Some of you county emergency managers or rural emergency managers, you have different challenges, but that's directly related to government affairs and government functions, and to get an intern to see that and live it, to have a strengthen their understanding of it. How about availability? A lot of students are employees. They have paid jobs that they have obligations to, plus their schoolwork. So what is our expectation for that project? Is it 5 hours a week, 10 hours a week, 40 hours a week? What do we have that's going to require to work on that project? And what is their availability to work on that project? And that goes back to the workspace. We live in a digital world. There's things that they can do. There's people that they can meet during the workday. If they need to get some research done, visiting other departments or other agencies to get information for the completion of that project, that's something they can do where it fits on their own time. I personally don't track the hours. I have that student track their hours and justify that with what they've done. I'll sign off on it if it looks right to me, but I don't count their hours because I like working towards objective and let's get this done. And I can't tell you how much time they've done research. I don't know how much they've done. They can say how much they've done, but when I see that we're meeting our objective, that's when we sign off on it. What's the right amount of oversight? We can't hold their hand because then we become inefficient in our function. So mentorship is not hand-holding and is not directing every action to do. Mentoring is giving them some responsibility and that opportunity to jump into that. And you know, it may not be done as exactly as we would do it, but it also provides us the opportunity to see that this is going to work, the work that was done. And that may take some revision down the road, but managing and accomplishing that goal. So I think we have to, I used to think I had to hold their hand and tell them everything to do, but we don't. We give them a responsibility. These folks are hungry. And I go back to, you're going to get out of this what you put into it. And what you get out of it is up to you, not to me. Of course, we have to give them those appropriate and adequate opportunities. So, in the end, I can't say that it's going to be, they're going to become a proficient emergency manager, but they are going to have a greater understanding. And also, when we talk about leadership or organizational skills, they're going to enhance or they're going to develop more skills that they're going to build on down the road in their future. But that's something that has, back to that being mutually beneficial, something we have done together that has helped my organization, helped me with a better understanding or perspective on how to become a better mentor for an intern. And that intern has what they have, whatever they have gained to take on down the road for the next step in their career. So, for those of you who haven't had an intern, do you mind telling me what's preventing you from hosting an intern? Can anybody tell me what it is that stops you?
say having a vision of what to do with them. All the stuff you threw out was good, but I guess for me it's been a struggle of I need to identify that project or that, whatever it is I want them to do, and I've struggled coming up with that vision. So this is cool, but I guess I'm hungry for more there of what I would do with them, what that might look like as a curriculum, if you want to call it that. And I guess that's even why I'm here. So this has been good, but I'm actually hungry for more of what could I do.
Great question, Jason. And think about this. I look at what I did with my first intern, who was a student, and he was an MMA fighter, and he was trying to intern for me. He'd come to the office, and he'd have a black eye and a fat lip, and I wasn't giving him the right opportunity, and that didn't work out so good. But I learned something from that first internship of what I need to do moving forward.
Something you can consider too is that because it's about the learning of the student, it could be, we have one internship it's in physical therapy, but these students actually sit down with books and they spend 3 hours a week or 4 hours a week just simply going through books, and they actually have this whole education component that's administered by the site, not by the school. And so it doesn't all have to be project-based. You know, if you're thinking through and thinking, okay, I've got this project, but probably it'll take 10 hours before it's done, and we've got a student who's looking for 180 hours worth of work, it could involve shadowing other parts of your organization or other responsibilities within your team. That doesn't have to be work that they're producing necessarily if they're still learning by being a part of this. So attending meetings can be something that's a regular, ongoing responsibility that they have. Compiling reports for you based on things that you're bringing in. Researching what other people are doing and best practices and coming up with responsibilities for you. But I just thought it was interesting that this organization was doing it, and actually it's a very appropriate activity. It's about the learning of the student. So the students would sit there with their books and read it, and then they'd sit down with their mentor or their supervisor and talk about how does that happen here in this organization? What does that look like? And then they would apply whatever that principle is into what they're doing. So it does take time for the supervisor and the mentor to think through and do these kinds of things, if that's a route you want to take. But that might be something you haven't thought of before that can take care of those hours they're looking for.
There was a couple of hands that said they had interns before. Would any of you be willing to share briefly positive, difficult, challenging?
My experience was fairly easy. I had a young lady in the community who was actually approached me about doing some intern work. So I kind of come up to speed very quickly, but got a sense as to what her time availability was. And we actually had a very specific project I wanted to do, gathering local information through our community relative to our ESF 8 resources and so forth, and put together some questionnaires, and she spent the time doing this survey and gathering data and information for us. And I've got really quite a significant database, and I have an idea of what nursing homes have generators, which ones don't, which ones would be able to be a resource for me. So it actually worked out fairly well, and I wish I could find another half a dozen people like that.
That's a great example, Mark, and thank you. There was some research involved with that.
I've had a number of interns over the years, usually 3 or 4 months at a time. I usually sit down with them originally and find out what their goals are, what they want to do, what they want to learn. I believe in it being something that they get something out of, so they never sit down and do filing for me all day or putting papers around. We set goals. If I have projects, that's great. One of the first things I do with them is I spend about 3 hours and show them Park City and tell them, if you're going to help me take care of this town, you better learn the town. So we drive all over the place and look at the neighborhoods and look at where shelters are and look at everything that's involved with the operation. We set up the EOC. Sometimes they don't have some of the basic IS courses that you want. I make them sit down and do those as well. Then I drag them to as many meetings as we can, because we know that in this business it's relationships, so they might as well learn what those relationships are. I find that they have pretty good information on the basics from classroom, but they truly don't know what happens in the field. And so I try to get them out in the field as much as I can, and you know, there's not a lot of emergencies for them to go to, but I try to expose them to every part of my job that I can expose them to. And so we set that out, set those goals, we sit down and look at them as the time goes along, see if they've met them, or if there's something specifically they want to work on, then we work that out too.
One of the things we used an intern for in Salt Lake County was to work with our GIS mapping guys because we were working on getting some new updated map books put together of our county, and you can have everything on there between shelters to schools to, I mean, you name it. And so that's one way we use them.
Great, thank you.
Well, I just want to say thank you again. Thank you for what you guys do, and thank you for considering the impact that you can have as practitioners on the future people that will be filling in your shoes eventually, and keeping communities safe like you do as well.
She said what I was going to say, but anyway, one of the things I would just say to do is, like what this gentleman here in Park City has done, these interns, it's not as difficult a task as it sounds like to set up an internship and to get it off the ground. A lot of it's letting them be exposed to your daily activities, seeing what's involved, all aspects of it. Then you can let them do some of the book learning or the research that needs to be done to help put a planning project in motion, or the back end of one, whatever it may be. But that day-to-day activity is really what they need to see, and gives them that experience that any other employer is going to be looking for. Thanks again for letting us come talk to you.
One last thing, there's a individual up here who's currently deployed with FEMA Corps who's looking for an internship for the summer. And the information is up here if you're interested.
She's going to be a UVU student, so contact us about how you can
Yep.
And we still have 10 minutes for questions, and I'll be thinking of some questions. I'll bring a mic around. Okay, while I'm walking over, I'm gonna ask the first one myself. What expectations are there for the length of time? What's available as far as an internship lasting? 1 semester, 2 semesters, beyond the school year? What's the expectation there?
So the typical internship lasts a semester. It kind of depends on the goals of the student and what they're trying to accomplish. Sometimes senior level students don't have as much work left to finish before they graduate, and so they may not be looking for as long an internship because they quite frankly don't need the extra credits. But usually they're looking to seek that opportunity after the fact of graduation, so possible job opportunities. So it could be anywhere from a semester to a year. That's what our current opportunities are going.
School year, you mean, or calendar year?
School year. School year.
So coming from outside of the emergency management field, is it possible that maybe we could look at the syllabus that they're being taught and the subjects that they're being taught and see how we could fit that into the city's plans and stuff like that?
I think what UFA described, using them in GIS, well, that's a geography major, and that's not emergency management, but the application of that, and I think that's a great example of someone who is not specific to emergency management, how they can obtain that internship.
Yeah, and from UVU, we would be happy to provide a listing of courses and more explanation on what's on those syllabus, what are they learning, so that you can match that to skill sets that you desire. And that's really positive feedback for us too as a university, so that we can keep tabs on what do you want out in industry, what is the, what's the gap between what we are teaching and where you need us to be as well, so we can make that as beneficial to the students and to you too. So Jim's card is up here. I'd be happy to provide you with my card too if anybody wanted to learn a little bit more about that.
And Jason, following up on your question, as far as what we can do with interns, it does depend on their level of education and what they're doing. And I agree with you where, bring them through 1, 2, 7, and 8. Help them get their PDS. They can do that online. But then in addition to that, I know that when I'm doing tasks, there are some tasks I know that can be done by an intern, and I don't mean just filing all day. But I will keep a running list in the back of my planner on, you know what, this would be a great thing for my next intern to do. And I keep that running list. So when somebody comes to the office and says, okay, can I be an intern? I've already got a list of things that I'm going to have them start working on. It's not just stuff that I had to think up overnight because I thought, wow, they're going to show up tomorrow. It's stuff that I've had a running list. But I've got a gentleman right now finishing up his master's at American Military University. And I had no problem letting him take a couple of the ESFs that we had and go through those and work with those with him at his level. But keep that running list of what you can have these people do, and it's a real time saver when you get somebody in and you've already got a list of, hey, let's go ahead and work on this resource list, and then let's go ahead and help you reach your goals. So,
Tal, is there a something that UEM is doing with listing internship opportunities on the website? Did I hear
yes,
something about that?
on our website we do have an internship section. We've worked with Jim on that, by the way. Jim, finally good to meet you face to face there. And we do have that, so somebody can go in and it links up to a page with UVU, puts you directly in contact with Jim, and that goes through the UVU or through the UEMA website.
I'll throw out the next question. Chris, maybe for you. Hopefully these are rare occasions, but if there's ever a time when an intern isn't just working out, I mean, what kind of flexibility do we have to end an internship early? What process do you have to go through? This isn't just working, we want to find somebody else. So has that ever happened to you, and how did you handle that? And is there anything we do have to do with the university at that time?
That did happen with that first intern, and it was MMA fighting was taking the priority over internship, and it was making him late, and he was not actually presentable. After the first black eye, he's not able to help me with those community presentations. I didn't want fat lips and black eyes. He looked like he'd been beat up, which he had, but we had to have what I call a come to Jesus talk. This is the expectation, and let's decide right now, can you meet that expectation? And if not, shake hands and good luck to you. And that's what it takes. It's not something that you dance around. I think you have to nip it in the bud quite quickly. You do give the opportunity for corrective action, but if that's not occurring, it's not personal, but it takes more time to work with a difficult person than it would be just to separate ways.
And from the university's perspective, we want you to have the best experience you can. We also want our students to learn, just like I was advising you to be direct and honest with those students, we also want to be that way as well. So if it's not working out and the student with corrective action, like Chris said, from both us and from the site, if that's not getting better, we will absolutely pull that student out. It doesn't happen very often, so when I give these examples, don't think that this is how UVU is. We have awesome students, we really do, but it happens occasionally. So when we do, we will try to get a replacement for you, especially if you've got projects that are time sensitive and you are counting on that extra manpower. We'll do everything we can to get somebody else that meets those needs, and we'll teach that intern how to be better. It's a good opportunity for them to learn as well.
So I've got a question. I'm just trying to think of the logistics in mind, try to get in front of all the different schools and places like that to try to recruit an intern. Is there maybe a potential that we could use the UEMA website as a place that those of us that are interested in interns, that could be posted, that information be sent out to all the colleges and universities, and they can come looking for us based upon their geographical area. Box Elder County is probably not going to work for somebody who's residing in Utah County, but maybe somebody up in the north end. So it's just a thought. We might be able to use the UEMA website for something like that.
Great idea.
We still have 5 minutes. Yeah, Will?
Going back to the challenge question that you asked, Chris, one of the challenges that I've had is I've had interns call from UVU saying, hey, we would like an internship, but they live down in Provo and the work is up in Logan. How do you facilitate somebody who lives in one location and needs to work in the other?
That is a bit sensitive. However, when I have interns who are working through Arizona State and post-university, that means that they are, I guess that's here so they can work with me, but that is more sensitive in finding a project that they wouldn't have to be at your location, but it's a challenge.
typically when a student comes in and speaks to me about an internship, I've kind of got a unique setup with my colleges where employers will give me a job listing or a job ad, and then I post it on the individual school or college sites for these students to be directed to directly, instead of having to search through some of the campus employment opportunities. And so when they come talk to me, I've got the details on there that we can go over. We talk about proximity to what they're currently doing, where they live, their ability or accessibility to transportation. So these are things I address with them when they come in with me. And in many situations like this, I've had students that have done internships way up north and they live as far as Santaquin south, but the opportunity was good enough that the driving didn't mean anything to them. It was the legitimacy of the opportunity. So that's not necessarily something that's going to detract or cause an issue. I mean, of course, when you're talking winter months, there can sometimes be delays in traffic or snow, things that cause problems like that. But as Chris said, I understand that, our university understands that. Some things can be done remotely. It's not the ideal situation, but I mean, a student, 99% of them have their own laptops. They can do research from home in those cases, work remotely, make some phone calls on their own to set up appointments as you need. So these things can be worked around.
And just one more point to that. Who asked the question? I forgot. Okay. One more thing to that too is we do have some scholarships to help, especially for housing, because we'd like our students to go out and experience beyond just Utah County. And so we could help with some housing. So if that student for, say, a summer wanted to go and work there, or it even could be during a fall or spring and they could do online classes, which this program is, then we can help to supplement that a little bit if they're willing to do the legwork to get the housing. We won't secure it for them, and we wouldn't expect you to have to secure it for them either. But if the student is willing to do that legwork, we can help. So direct them to us and have them ask the question. We'd be happy to do that.
Let's give Chris, Nikki, and Jim a round of applause. Appreciate their presentation, their expertise, sharing this great information with us. Hopefully you all